"This is a lie, and you're using the seal of this chamber to sell it." The appointee's voice strained against the onslaught. Senator Jeanne Shaheen leaned into her microphone, a predator sensing weakness. "The only lie here, sir, is the one being pushed by your boss, Donald Trump, to justify his tyrannical takeover of a free press." The room was electric, the clash hanging in the air like a storm cloud. The day began not with a bang, but with the crisp, authoritative stroke of a pen. Inside the Oval Office, the morning sun streamed through the bulletproof windows, illuminating a president in his element. Donald Trump sat behind the resolute desk, his expression a mask of focused determination. He wasn't angry. He was resolved. In his hands was an executive order that would send shockwaves through Washington's political ecosystem. "This is long overdue," he said, his voice calm but carrying the weight of command. He looked at his chief of staff, a man who had seen him in every mood from fury to triumph. "For years we've poured hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars into Voice of America. For what? To have them broadcast a narrative of American decline? To have our own state-funded media apologize for our country on the world stage? No more." He uncapped his signature pen. "This isn't about control, it's about integrity. American taxpayers will not fund an agency that works against American interests. Period." With a flourish, he signed the order. It was done. A strategic overhaul of the VOA was now official policy. The goal was simple: root out the gross fiscal mismanagement, the political cronyism, and the pervasive anti-American bias that he and his team had spent months documenting. It took less than an hour for the storm to break. Across the city, in a sterile green room at a major cable news network, Senator Jeanne Shaheen was being wired for sound. Her face, projected onto a massive screen in the studio, was a carefully crafted portrait of righteous indignation. When the host turned to her, she unleashed the opening salvo of her crusade. "This is a dark day for democracy," she began, her voice quivering with practiced outrage. "What we are witnessing is a tyrannical purge, a move straight from the playbook of the world's most ruthless dictators. President Trump isn't reforming VOA, he is silencing it. He is trying to turn a revered institution, a beacon of truth for millions around the globe, into his personal propaganda machine." Every word was a poisoned dart aimed at the heart of the administration. She called it a decimation, a brazen assault on the First Amendment. She announced she would be leading a Senate hearing that very afternoon. She would put Trump's appointee, the man designated to lead the VOA reforms, under oath. She would, she promised, expose this war on truth for all the world to see. The battle lines were drawn. The stage was set for a public execution, and Shaheen was sharpening her axe. By afternoon, the atmosphere in the Hart Senate office building was thick with tension. The hearing room was a zoo of flashing cameras, whispering journalists, and stony-faced staffers. At the center of it all was Michael Pack, Trump's nominee, a man who looked like a lamb being led to slaughter. And across from him, at the head of the dais, sat Jeanne Shaheen. She was no longer just a senator. She was an inquisitor, and this was her court. She let him sweat for a moment after he was sworn in, the silence amplifying the tension. Then she began. "Mr. Pack," she started, her voice dripping with condescension. "Let's be frank. Your resume is thin. Wouldn't you agree? Isn't it true that your only real qualification for this incredibly important role is your personal loyalty to President Trump?" Pack, a decent man but not a political brawler, tried to answer. "Senator, I have a long career in broadcasting and documentary filmmaking, and I am deeply committed to the mission of—" Shaheen cut him off with a dismissive wave of her hand. "A mission you believe involves turning it into a mouthpiece for the president, correct?" The assault was relentless. For the next hour, Shaheen dominated the proceedings. She was a master of political theater, using every trick in the book. She twisted Pack's words, interrupted his answers, and addressed her remarks not to him, but to the cameras arrayed at the back of the room. Then came her masterstroke. "Let's look at the facts," she boomed, as an aide produced a series of large, glossy charts. My office has conducted a thorough analysis. The charts were a masterpiece of deception. They showed VOA's budget as a razor-thin line, implying peak efficiency. They featured cherry-picked quotes from foreign leaders praising VOA's impartiality. She brandished the charts like a weapon. This data proves there is no waste. No bias. These are the facts, she thundered, her voice echoing in the chamber. Your administration is manufacturing a crisis to justify a political takeover. You are here to do Donald Trump's dirty work, to dismantle a respected American institution. How do you answer to that, Mr. Pack? Pack was flailing. He knew her data was skewed, that the context was stripped away to create a false narrative, but in the heat of the moment he couldn't articulate it. He looked trapped, his face pale under the harsh television lights. On screens across America, the story was clear. The noble senator was defending the free press from the president's thuggish crony. But the president wasn't watching. While Shaheen was performing for the cameras, Donald Trump was preparing for a different kind of fight. He walked into the map room of the White House, where a small, nimble crew was setting up. There were no grand podiums, no cheering crowds. Just a couple of chairs, 2 microphones, and a small table. He was about to appear on one of the most popular independent podcasts in the world, a show known for its long, in-depth, and unfiltered conversations. He was bypassing the gatekeepers. The host, a man known for his calm but incisive questioning, got straight to the point. Mr. President, thank you for being here. Right now, Senator Jeanne Shaheen is holding a hearing on Capitol Hill. She is accusing you of being a dictator, of gutting a respected news agency to silence your critics. A very serious charge. How do you respond? Trump leaned forward, not with anger, but with the quiet confidence of a man holding a royal flush. She's a very good actress, he began, a slight smile playing on his lips. I saw a few clips, the charts, the dramatic pauses, very impressive. But it's all theater. She wants to talk about facts? Let's talk about facts, not political theater. From a simple manila folder on the table, he pulled out a sheaf of papers. They weren't glossy charts. They were photocopies of internal documents. This is an expense report from VOA's Jakarta bureau chief, Trump said, holding it up for the camera. A $5,000 dinner, paid for by you, the American taxpayer. Here's another one. A first-class flight to Paris for a 2-day conference on climate change, which produced no content, $22,000. He went on, his voice a steady, rhythmic cadence of indictment. He presented internal emails from VOA editors instructing reporters to de-emphasize American successes in manufacturing and technology. He read from a leaked editorial memo that laid out a plan to recenter VOA's global narrative on America's systemic failures and historical injustices. This isn't journalism, Trump stated, his voice hardening with moral authority. This is sabotage paid for by the very people it seeks to undermine. This is a taxpayer-funded Blame America First campaign. He then addressed Shaheen's charts directly. She held up a chart on the budget. Very nice. But she forgot to show you this. He produced another paper. This is the line item for, quote, consultant fees. It's ballooned by 400% in 6 years. Do you know who the consultants are? Friends and family of the old management. It's a cronyism slush fund. The host sat in stunned silence. This was raw, irrefutable evidence, delivered without the filter of a hostile press. Then came the final, devastating blow. Senator Shaheen claims I'm staging a purge, Trump said, looking directly into the camera as if speaking to every viewer individually. She says the staff is terrified. She says I'm destroying morale. Well, a few weeks ago, before any of this became public, a group of brave whistleblowers inside VOA conducted their own anonymous, internal poll. Management tried to bury it. But I have it. He held up the final document. 82% of VOA journalists and staff reported that they were embarrassed by the agency's editorial direction. 75% said they believed a leadership change was, quote, essential to restore the agency's credibility. And 91% said they were optimistic about the reforms my administration was proposing. He placed the paper down gently on the table. The silence was deafening. Senator Shaheen isn't defending the institution, he concluded, his voice low and powerful. She's defending the corrupt swamp that took it over. The good people inside VOA were begging for a lifeline. I just threw them one. The podcast went viral before it was even over. The internet exploded. The narrative didn't just shift, it shattered. The clips of Trump calmly presenting his evidence were juxtaposed with Shaheen's shrill theatrical performance in the Senate. She looked like a fool. A dishonest political hack caught in a lie of her own making. When the hearing ended, the reporters who had once fawned over Shaheen now swarmed her with the ferocity of sharks. "Senator, the president has produced documents showing massive waste. Do you have a comment?" "Senator, how do you explain the internal poll showing your claims about staff morale are false?" "Senator, were you aware of the cronyism when you were defending VOA's leadership?" Her arrogant demeanor crumbled. The mask of righteous indignation fell away, revealing a face of pure panic. She stammered, pushed through the crowd, and fled, muttering, "No comment," as the camera flashes followed her down the hall like gunfire. Later that night, back in the Oval Office, an aide handed President Trump a single-page summary. It detailed the overwhelming public support, the backpedaling of news outlets, and a fresh wire from the VOA Employees Association, officially welcoming the new leadership and thanking the president for his intervention. Trump read it, a small, determined smile touching his lips. He had faced down the jackals, not by wrestling with them in the mud, but by rising above them. He had trusted the people with the truth, and they had seen it. "Good," he said, placing the paper on his desk. "Now the real work begins." What did you think of the president's strategy to bypass the media and present his evidence directly to the people? Let us know your thoughts, and subscribe for more stories.